cross-legged position, whatever makes your back feel most comfortable and most neutral for today. So I'm going to move over to a folded blanket. Not, you got to make room for mama. Watch. There we go. So when you come to your seat, you want to try to make sure that your hip joints are a little higher than your knee joints. That might mean that you sit in a chair for today. I've got a blanket under me, so that helps a little bit. And we'll take a moment to just kind of recuperate from all the difficulty we had getting organized today, and to kind of really settle into what's happening in our own bodies and with our own breath. If you're comfortable closing your eyes, you're welcome to do that. Or else you can just stare down at the floor, and then your eyes at least get a little bit of rest here. Breathe in and out as best as you can through the nose. And begin to feel yourself landing here on the mat. And here's just a brief little visual that might help us as we come into our first seat of the practice. As you inhale, visualize energy coming up from the earth, right up the whole central channel of the body. And as you exhale, visualize the energy moving back down. So we often visualize energy moving on the spine as we breathe. This might be a little different than normal, but it'll all make sense soon, I hope. As you inhale and you bring the energy up, start to imagine a bit of an elevator shaft sort of idea along the central channel. And as you exhale, maybe that elevator shaft kind of sinks back down. So inhale, lifting energy, exhale, releasing energy down. And then the next time you inhale, bring the energy all the way up, right to the crown of the head. And as you exhale, have the energy come down and stop just right here at the level of the forehead. So you're not going all the way down with your breath. You're stopping right here if you can, the level of your forehead. And just imagine, and you keep breathing easily, but imagine in your brain that there are elevator doors opening here. And if there's a lot of crowding in the elevator right now at the level of the forehead, let some of that come out with your next exhale. And then inhale, you can take the elevator back up to the crown of the head and keep coming back down as you exhale and stopping at the forehead, opening the elevator doors and letting out all the crowding. And you might have to do that a couple times until you feel like there's some space developing around the forehead area. And then the next time you exhale, let the elevator come right down to the center of the chest. And the elevator doors open here. And if there's any heaviness or congestion in the chest around the, say, energy of the heart, maybe, if there's a lot, gathering here in the chest, you could open the elevator doors and let that kind of be less crowded now. And if you need to take the elevator up and down a couple times and stop at the level of the chest, you can do that. And then after working with that, you can inhale, take the elevator all the way up to the top floor. Exhale, bring it all the way down to the basement. So where the sitting bones are meeting the chair or the ground. The elevator doors can open way down there in the basement and let out any congestion or any sense of crowding around the hips or the low belly or the low back. And again, you can take the elevator up and down as many times as you want with breath. And you can open the elevator doors in any of those spaces that you feel like you need to create some more space. And after you've used that technique, if you chose to, and feel that you're more connected now to not only your rhythm of breath, but what's happening in the middle part of the body, you might be ready to come into some movement. If you need a little bit more time to sit and get that sense of connection to your whole spinal channel activated, then by all means, stay in a seated position for a little bit longer. If you're ready, though, we're going to come up to mountain pose. We're going to get right into our work today. The theme this week, last week, was all about grounding and feeling that sense of centering, if we could. And it's really important for us to be able to feel safe, as though we come onto the sanctuary of our yoga mat. And then once we know how to ground ourselves, and hopefully you've had a chance to work with that quite a bit in the past week's classes, now we can start working towards creating space. So today, that's kind of the theme, and our approach for today's class to create space or open up to the light is to become a little bit more patient with our present moment experience. It's really hard to create space around any stimulus in our world if we're busy darting all over and we want to avoid trouble at all costs and that sort of thing. So we're going to use our yoga postures to try to create that sense of patience, that sense of space. So the first couple postures are more moving. You can adapt any rhythm with your breath that feels healthy for you. And also you can add more movements in as you get more comfortable with breathing. So we'll start right here with just an inhale and an exhale in your mountain pose. On your next inhale, lift your toes, fan them up away from the ground. And as you exhale, curl the toes into the mat, making that movement as gentle or as bouncy as you feel you have room for today. And after you've done a couple breaths like that, let's change it and lift the arms up as you inhale, and exhale, lower the arms back down. Taking a couple more breaths like that, noticing if now that there's more to do, if you're getting restless and you're starting to move really quickly. And for those of you who want to layer in a little bit more activity this afternoon, you can come up onto the balls of your feet as you inhale and adding a little bit more focus challenge. So it really does become quite a focus to be able to levitate at the same time with the arms and the feet, and to time all that with breath. Keep going. There we go. One more breath. And then releasing back down to the ground. We're going to take some side stretches now, half moon pose. You can keep your feet in mountain pose or widen out a little bit. Either way works great. And if taking your arms up above your head, you've discovered that's not comfortable this afternoon, work with your hands on your hips. That works just fine. Inhale, lengthen the spine, and exhale, curl it over to one side. Inhale, come back to center, and exhale, curl the spine the other way. Coming back and forth a few more times to each side as we elongate the side body. So we were working with that sense of an elevator channel at the very beginning. So now we're still elongating the elevator shaft, but it's being curled from side to side. Now I think this evens out for me, going from side to side. I'm going to come back to center and release the arms. We're going to come into another posture. So I'm going to invite you to come towards the front of your mat. And let's step the right leg back. Make sure that your left foot and your right foot are on two separate sides of the mat. They're not right behind each other. And with your hips staying facing forward, pivot on your back foot, bring it all the way to the ground. So we're setting up for our warrior one stance. So there's some space between the legs. The front knee stops right over top of the front ankle. And both feet are equally rooted into the ground. Now let's bring some breath rhythm into this. We're going to inhale, pull the arms back. Exhale, pull the arms in and bend the front knee. Inhale and exhale. Let's take a few more moving breaths here. And then the next time that you exhale, keep your arms like this, just bend the knee. Inhale, keep the legs the way they are, reach and see if your hands will touch up above your head. Exhale, pull the elbows down. And you can bring the arms as far up above your head as is comfortable. If it's not comfortable to lift any higher than this, then that's where you stay. And then on the next exhale, not only can we release the arms, but we can bring the legs together and prepare to do the same series on the other side. So this time the right leg can step back. Make sure there's some space between your legs. Pivot on the ball of the back foot, bring the whole foot to the floor. Sorry if I got the legs backwards. It felt very familiar on that side. So your right knee is forward, in case I was confusing there. And then when you're ready, we'll inhale, straighten the front knee, exhale, drop the arms and bend the front knee. This doesn't have to be a really large movement. We want to start to really bring some energy into the joints, especially if you've had some situations where you had to sit a lot today. And the next time you inhale, keep the front knee bent. Bring the arms into this position. And when you're ready to inhale the next time, we'll lift the arms up. And exhale, bend the elbows and draw down. Moving with your breath, so there's no need to rush, do anything too quickly. And we're just seeing where our shoulders are happy holding the arms today. And we're just checking out and memorizing this leg position. We're getting ready to come into one of our first holding situations. So on the next exhale, let's step the legs together and come into mountain pose. So if we get into a situation, we're going to try holding warrior one now. If you get into a situation where you think this is just not sustainable, you can either do what we just did, move dynamically, or come out and rest in mountain pose. Or if you have a chair handy, you could always sit on your chair. So the idea of holding the poses is not to develop any great, stretch or deeper effects or anything. The idea of holding the poses today is to create that space that we can feel lightness, that we could feel our way towards enlightenment. So don't choose your deepest warrior one pose. Choose a warrior one that you could hold without a terrible amount of effort. That's really important. So maybe dial it back to 60% of your normal warrior one. So when you're ready, we'll come to the front of the mat. We'll step our right leg back. It's on the right half of the mat, and we pivot on that back foot. So here we are. We're set up for our warrior one again. As you inhale, come into the cactus arms position and then keep lifting the arms until you feel that your shoulders are at a place where they can hold this comfortably for a little bit of time. So we're in our warrior one position. Come back to the breath. Noticing the inhale and the exhale. Work the imagery that we had earlier of the elevator, if that's helpful. And that might help you bring a sense of movement along the spine, even though we're holding our warrior one position. Remember, you're choosing a version of warrior one that's not terribly physically taxing, something that feels as though you could sustain this for a few more breaths without starting to sweat or anything like that. And when you hold the physical container of the pose like that, then all of a sudden you have all this capacity to start diving into the multi-layers of the pose, into what it does with your breath, and what it does with your mood, what it does, where it leads your thoughts. Okay. Let's keep our legs like this, but slowly start to bring the arms down. Keep a little bit of a bend in the front knee. And this is where I'm going to suggest you either grab a chair, and I'll be using a chair to demonstrate, or a couple blocks. So I'm going to bring my chair right here, place that it's not going to slide. So currently my left leg is forward, right leg back, and I've got a little bend in the front knee. When you're ready, inhale, you can bring the arms up or just to the shoulders. Exhale, hinge at the hips, bring the spine long. So your elevator shaft is now parallel to the floor. Good. As you inhale again, draw the left hip back, let the right hip roll forward. So you've really kept your hips quite square to the chair or the wall in front of you. Gradually over the next couple breaths, explore straightening out the left knee without letting your hips turn too far to either side. So just explore the idea of two fairly straight legs. Again, remember when we're coming into these poses, this is pyramid pose. You may notice from your angle that my legs make a bit of a pyramid shape. That we want to come into a version of the pose that allows us to be comfortable so that we have the space, the capacity to sit here and really contemplate what's going on with our breath and our mood and our thoughts. So hands could be on blocks here. I like the chair because it really does give me a lot of extra space to feel where the hips are, to feel the weight in both of my feet. And then be here. When you're ready, you can bring the back foot up to the front foot and stand up and find a standard mountain pose. You could also sit in the chair and do seated mountain pose. That's a pretty deep shifting of the hips that we've just enjoyed. So you may want to take a moment to let all of that settle. We're getting ready to come into that same combination of postures on the other side. So we'll be stepping back with the left foot, finding your warrior one stance. And then when you're ready, inhale, lifting the arms similarly to how we did earlier. Remembering we're looking for a position with the arms that will allow us to be comfortable, that we feel like we have space. Press firmly down through your back foot. And you can even imagine that the breath, the energy of the breath, the elevator shaft goes all the way down. The basement is now out of the sole of your left foot. So you just incorporate a sense of the spine really grounding into the earth. And this gives us time to mine down into the very deep layers of the posture. I'm just going to shift so you can see from your perspective, but so our right leg is behind, our left leg is in front, left knee is bent a little bit. Sorry, right knee is bent a little bit. Getting my rights and left very confused today. And we can take our hands to the chair or the block. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, fold halfway so that our spine is now parallel to the floor. Take some time to shift the left hip forward, pull the right hip back. So we're squaring to the front of the mat or the wall in front of you. And then over the next couple breaths, you could explore straightening the right knee a little bit. But if that causes you to twist your hips or to round your back, I'd rather you have a bent front knee. Let's inhabit this shape for a little while. So truly inhabit the shape. Even close your eyes so you're not even influenced by a mirror reflecting your shape if there's one in your space. That you can really feel this shape from the inside out. Take a couple more nice breaths. And then when you're ready, when you feel you've mined this posture, step your back foot up and find your mountain pose. We'll pause here. Remember, there's the option to take the seated mountain pose at any time. The next posture I'd like to head to is towards downward facing dog. Now, we're going to be here for a little while. So I'm going to do a little bit of dynamic work first, but you may choose to take a child's pose option, or I'm going to continue to use the chair to support me today. So hands can come onto the chair. You can step our feet back. I'm gonna go under the blanket so I can get a better grip on the chair seat here. And I can come into a modified down dog with the chair. You could be in down dog on the ground, like with your hands on the ground, or you could also have your knees on the ground in a prayer-like gesture, in a prayer-like pose. So this could be our exhale position as we reach the tailbone back. And as you inhale, shifting forward, elbows bent, chest pushes up away from the floor a little bit. And then exhale, bend the knees as you pull back. So choosing a little bit of rhythmic movement here that will allow you to create space in the joints, particularly the shoulders and the hips, I guess. And keeping all of the joints in a slightly bent position, no matter where you go, so that there's no real locking or strain on any of our joints. And after you feel you've moved enough, we can come into holding the posture. So you might have chosen my version of downward facing dog. You might have your hands on the ground in the more traditional version, or you might be in a prayer-like gesture. Whatever you've chosen, try to keep your ears in between your upper arms and tune into the breath. The last two poses we did were asymmetrical poses, so they work on the nervous system in slightly different ways. They flip up the charge to the nervous system. Now that we're in a more symmetrical pose, we're coming into a more balanced effect on the nervous system. Can you sense that at all? Can you tune into that? Can you tune into how the inhale more naturally balances to the exhale here? Or how you start to feel a little bit calmer, but still clear-headed, awake, but relaxed. So using a little bit of time in our symmetrical posture, like child's pose, prayer pose, or down dog, just to kind of really feel the effects. These postures really do weave deeply into our whole experience. And if we're just rushing through a flow, sometimes we miss out on some of the nuances of that. Holding here for a breath or two more. And then if you're in child's pose, gradually press up to table pose, make your way to a standing position. And if you are already hands on chairs, you don't have as far to go to find your mountain pose. Taking a breath in and out. Okay. So for mountain pose, we're going to work a little bit on focus. Again, we did that at the beginning. We're going to do it again. Here's an option you might want to take with your chair. Just having it here so you can take a hand to your chair at any time if you need to. Usually when we're working with balance, we're working with focus because our culture is so like ADD. We can get a lot of messaging coming up about not feeling safe. And we wanted to really do our safety work last week. So using props can really help to keep you feeling grounded and centered. So unless you're like uber comfortable with balancing on one leg, why not have the prop there today? Just so that you can really get the true benefits of this practice. So I'm going to take an inhale right here in mountain pose. And as I exhale, I'm going to lift one knee up as high as I can on its own, no strain. Inhale, wave the knee out to the side, and exhale, wave the knee across my body. So just like that. You could get creative and make circles. You could draw, a figure 8 on its side, which is like an infinity symbol. I'm going to stay old school, just real simple today, because I want to really focus on my hip staying level. Notice if you can put your hand on your hip here or both hands on your hips, notice how you can really feel the whole kind of pelvic area staying stable while you just move the leg. And after you've taken a few breaths like that, we could move to the other side. So for you, you can turn around, just face the other way if you need more space. I'm going to stay facing this way so I can still see you. Inhale in mountain pose. Exhale, lift. Inhale, knee comes out to the side. And exhale, we cross across. So getting into the hip joint in a little bit different way now. Noticing all the other joints of the body stay soft, especially, for example, the standing leg knee. It has a wee bend to it. And the jaw and the shoulders, they stay pretty soft through all of this. Okay, back to mountain pose. Now here's a suggestion. You could keep the chair right here, or here's something else that might be kind of fun. Even for my friends that are more experienced at tree pose, they might find having a block on the floor here something really interesting to try. I've got a cork block that's really thick and heavy. If you have a foam block, it'll give you just a little extra challenge. So you can hang onto the chair again if that worked well. Take that first leg, inhale and exhale, lift the leg up. Inhale, take the leg out to the side and place the foot on the block. So both feet are actually standing. This is no longer, one of those wobbly, oh my God, am I going to fall or embarrass myself yoga poses. This becomes a real challenge to find activity through both legs now. So usually we tell you to take this foot and press it against the standing leg, but everybody ignores that part of the pose. But this version of the pose really helps you to remember how important this leg is in tree pose. So press the foot down into the block, press the other foot down into the ground and grow tall. You can have hands on hips, hands at heart, or grow some branches. And then we're going to inhabit the shape for a few breaths. And notice if you feel more rooted in your tree pose today, if you're using extra props. Because isn't that one of the things we try to achieve in our tree, is a sense of really rooting down through our feet like roots of a tree. When you've been here long enough, you can release, come back to mountain pose, and just kind of come back to that symmetrical container. Just like when we're using down dog, it gives us a chance to notice the effect on the nervous system. When one side of the body is doing something different than the other side of the body, the nervous system is being weighted towards one kind of aspect. So by coming back to a solid symmetrical container, we invite the learning to really settle in. I'm going to move my block slightly so I'm ready for the other side now. And then when you inhale, exhale, and inhale, we can come into tree pose here. So pressing into both feet, just like you did on the other side, making sure the joints are still fairly soft, deciding where your branches are going to be today on this side. You might bring the imagery back of the elevator shaft. And the elevator shaft can go all the way down to the sub-basement in the sole of the standing leg foot and into the sole of the foot that's on the block. But how straight is your elevator shaft? I have a tendency to really go off like this. I'm exaggerating, but with the foot pressing in both feet pressing like this, I'm much more likely to be able to remember to keep a nice vertical elevator shaft all the way from the ground to the crown of my head. So let's inhabit this place. Let's be here. Wonderful. And when you've finished with your tree pose, you can release. Shake the legs out. They've been working pretty hard. When we hold poses, we kind of start to activate the muscles in a different way. So I love flow. I love dynamic movement. But there are some benefits, different benefits achieved when we hold poses. And you might be feeling your muscles reacting a bit differently today if it's not your habit to hold poses this long. You might want to keep your chair like this for a little bit longer. If you don't have a chair, but you could get access to an ottoman, or you could stack a couple blocks on top of each other, make yourself like a nice tall tower, that might work. But the chair really is a wonderful thing. Turning sideways on your mat, keeping the chair over to the side. Initially, our feet are parallel and lined up with each other. And then we'll use our skill of externally rotating this thigh to turn the knee out to a 90-degree angle from the back leg. And then when we bend the knee, we notice the knee is bending at the same angle as the toes, right towards the short edge of the mat. Now, if you need to make an adjustment with this back leg, step it forward a little bit, internally rotate it a little bit, all that is fine. Okay, we're going to come into a little bit of a dynamic version of triangle pose, Trikonasana, and then we might decide, like we've been doing on some of the other poses, to hold. So on the inhale, we can expand and open the chest. Exhale, reach out to the chair, ottoman, or if you have a really big stack of blocks. And as you inhale again, bring your arm up over your ear. And then as we exhale, let's pull right out of the posture. Let's try that 2 more times. Inhaling and exhaling and inhaling and exhaling. So using the chance to move dynamically just to find your natural range of motion. I'm noticing that my hand could be lower than where it is on the back of the chair. So maybe I'll turn my chair around so I can reach to the seat. If you want to make an adjustment to your props, now's a great time to do it. We don't want to be straining to get down to something. That's not our game today at all. Starting with this front knee, very, very mobile, certainly not locked in any kind of position. Let's come into the pose the same way as we've been practicing. So inhale, exhale, bring the chair a little closer here, inhale, and then on the exhale, holding our triangle pose. Now, you can have quite a bend in this knee if that makes it easy for you to get your hand to your prop. Try to bring your prop so that your arm is straight up and down from the floor, and then the top arm can be straight up and down from the floor too. So you'll see from your angle, I think that I've created a triangle with my legs, but I've also created kind of a triangle between my arm and my front leg. And there's also a little bit of a triangle shape with the whole body towards the floor. So there's 3 triangles in this pose. Can you spot them? As you hold the pose, you can work towards straightening the front leg. You can work towards pushing up from the ground and opening the space in the center of the chest. But all of that happens with really no sweat, no real effort. Remember, we were encouraged in the classical literature to treat yoga, asana, as a comfortable seat, a beautiful and elegant balance between effort and total surrender to gravity. So I'm making a little bit of effort. I'm holding my triangle shape, but I can talk and I can smile and I can feel joy, and I'm not suffering at all. So your pose, I'm hoping you're finding that place in your pose today. And on your next exhale, you might look down towards your front foot and lift right up. Now you can turn around and face the other way so your chair's in the right spot. I'm going to stay right here and just talk you through the other side. So you initially start with your feet fairly wide apart, feet parallel, toes in line with each other. Use the skill you've been practicing to externally rotate the second leg. You turn the thigh bone outward at a 90-degree angle to where it was, so that when you bend the front knee, it points in the same direction as the toes that are facing the short edge of your mat. Keep the front knee bent as we practice a few times. Inhale, arms come out. Exhale, come into triangle pose. Inhale, stretch the top arm over the top ear. And exhale, pull out of the posture. Inhale. Exhale, tip into triangle. Inhale, stretch the whole side line of the body, and exhale, pull out of the posture. One more time, moving. And remember, we're using this to find our natural range of motion, a way to move in which it's not straining us. It's not causing us to sweat and pant with effort. Make sure your prop is in place, and then we'll inhale, exhale into the pose. And staying right here in this triangle pose, the front knee is still quite bent. Over time, we can look at straightening the front knee a little bit, never locking it into place. using your props so the two arms can really pull away from each other. The bottom hand grounding into earth, the top hand lifting straight up like that elevator shaft. You can even visualize the elevator shaft, inhaling from the top hand to the bottom hand, and then exhaling up from the bottom hand to the top hand. So it gives you a sense of how vertical we want that line, how open we want to try to bring between the two hands, what openings we're trying to create there. And then be in the pose. When it's time for you to pull out, you can look down at the bottom leg, lift up, and release into mountain pose. Take a moment to come back to your symmetrical container. Triangle pose is incredibly powerful for disturbing, what's stagnant in the body. I find it unclogs my nose. And of course, it's wonderful work for pulling apart all the tightness in our hips, all the stuff we've stored in our hips. Okay. So we're going to come down onto the mat for a little brief interlude on our backs. I like to have a blanket to cushion my spine. You may find if you're on a carpet, you don't need that. And then in order to work the pose and be able to stay in it a little while, I'm going to use a yoga strap. If you don't have a yoga strap, you can use an old necktie, or I also have, a Pilates TheraBand type thing here that you can tie around your thighs. I'm also going to have another blanket. You could use a pillow. This is going to slide underneath my sacrum. I'm really going to have some fun with this today. And then I have the block for between my thighs. So if you don't have a block, you could use a full roll of toilet paper or that full box of Kleenex. That also works. So let's get this set up. We're going to be holding this for just a little while here. So lying with a nice long spine, so my elevator shaft is as parallel to the floor as possible. I'm going to place the block in between my legs. Then I'm going to take the strap. I might have to do this the other way around. Take the strap around my thighs. There we go. So that the strap is holding my thighs right, kissing the sides of the block or the toilet paper roll or whatever I'm using, so that I have nice stability all the way through my thigh bones. Feet onto the floor. Toes will be pointing straight ahead, and the legs make two lovely parallel lines that fit perfectly into the width of my bumper bones here. Let's work dynamically a couple times, as we have in most of our postures so far today. We'll come into the bridge pose as we inhale and come back down as we exhale. And then there's the option to hold for a while with an additional prop under the sacrum. So when you're ready, gaze straight at the ceiling, feet well grounded into the earth. Take an inhale, lift the hips, point the knees straight ahead. Exhale, lower down slowly. Try that a couple times and just be very mindful if there's any props that are in the wrong place. You'll get a pretty strong signal from your body. It will hurt or it won't feel right. So you can always get rid of a prop or adjust it. You'll also find that there's a certain lift that's comfortable for your hips, and you don't want to push past that, especially if we're going to hold the posture. You may decide that what you folded for a blanket is overly ambitious and you want to take it down a notch. And that's exactly what I'm going to do right now, because I'm listening to my body and I'm saying, yeah. So it's okay to be like Princess and the Pea. Get it just right. The next time you have your hips lifted, you may choose to bring your prop underneath your sacrum. Remember, we're working at below our normal capacity. So you'll notice I made the decision to take a roll out of my blanket so that my sacrum's not as high as it was when I was doing this on my own. There's a very good reason for that. It's got to do with passive versus active stretching and what's healthy for my nervous system. So I feel quite a surprising amount of lift underneath my tushy, but I'm not in my full, sexy appreciation of bridge pose. Now, this isn't exactly a completely passive stretch. I'm still using the props around my legs to maintain that beautiful symmetry of the thigh bones. And I'm allowing that symmetry to really communicate down into the hip sockets. I'm feeling the thigh bones just sink back into these warm, welcoming receptors here that are in, because of the symmetry, it just has an inherent feeling of soothing and feeling, well, right. Like, this is the way I should be propped. Now, if you don't feel that way, then something else needs to change. Maybe the prop needs to be a little higher into your hips. Maybe you don't need it at all. Maybe one of the things at the legs isn't quite right. So this isn't a falling asleep place. This is an active place. I'm using bridge pose as an inversion here and getting all the benefits of the inversion, but I'm really using it in a very gentle way so that my body has lots of energy and space to communicate with itself and say, wow, I'm learning this, or I'm feeling that, or it feels safe just to really relax around that now. So let's inhabit this shape for a few more breaths. Sometimes I notice when I use a lot of props in my postures like we are tonight, there's a sense of real coming home or safety in the practice. And what that does is it helps to communicate to the parts of myself where there's no words, where there's only sensation, really, old parts of my brain. And the message starts to filter through about this point in the practice for me that it's safe to relax. It's safe to really start to enjoy the postures. And it's always safe to relax and enjoy your postures, but sometimes I feel, even myself, all by myself, I feel pressure. Am I going to be able to do it today? Should I do it today? Will I hurt after if I do it today? So now my nervous system's getting that message that, oh, we're not going to do crazy things. Oh, it feels kind of nice. All right, then, let's all settle in. So I don't know if that's happening for you or not, but that's one of the benefits of really using props mindfully and taking time in each posture, is you can maybe start having that conversation with your body about safety and about letting go and about creating space. And then when you're ready to come out, you can take more time. Be very, very careful. Press into your feet. Lift just a centimeter so you can slide whatever's underneath your hips out and away. Come down onto your back so that your spine is once again fully parallel to the floor. Your elevator shaft is parallel to the floor. Take a breath there. Then we can start removing the props from in and around the legs. I'm going to stay down here for one more thing. I'm going to take a half happy baby here. Now you might find your tie, strap, TheraBand, whatever you've got going on, kind of fun to play with. I'm going to do happy baby dynamically. I'm going to bring one knee into my chest, take the tie, band, whatever you've got around the ball of the foot, and come into the initial start of happy baby. So knee down towards the floor and the foot, the sole of the foot pointing straight up to the sky. And then when you're ready, take an inhale, push the leg out and straight, and then exhale, draw it back down. So my knee is pointing towards the armpit when it comes down, and the foot's pointing out on a bit of an angle as I inhale and extend. Take a pump or two more here. And then release, and we'll move over to the other leg. It's good to take a breath or two between sides. So happy baby with the other leg. And this could feel quite different. That's normal. And you might not normally use a strap for this, but if you are deciding to use a prop for this, notice how much more space you might be discovering in your hip joint. So often with these kind of poses, if we automatically, hook our yogi toe lock and, start to really straighten the leg, you may be using other joints rather than the hip joint to get that movement. When you're ready, let's roll over to the side and gently press up from the floor. And I'm going to take my blanket that I've been depending on so much through this whole practice and fold it one more time so that I have a folded blanket at least that thick. You could even fold it again so you have a folded blanket 2 or 3 inches thick. In fact, maybe I should play like that today, just because we're really working hard with our props. So I'm going to sit on the edge of that folded blanket, and a pillow doesn't work quite as good because you would like something kind of firm. I'm going to reach behind, and I'm going to pull the flesh of my buttocks directly backwards, not out to the side, but directly backwards. So those sitting bones are really exposed and hooked right over the edge of the blanket. Then if you have another pillow or another blanket you can play with, let's do that. And bring that up underneath the knees. So you're going to feel kind of like elevated from the ground a bit. But the sitting bones hooked over the edge of the blanket down here is really kind of an important point. You'll feel like you're already angled forward a little bit. And that's a really important kind of aspect to this that we want to get to. And as we have so many times today, let's work a little bit dynamically. If you have your strap handy, you could use that. You can use the tie or the TheraBand. And I'm going to take the arms up like this. Now, if having your arms up like this is not a good idea, why don't we go more goalpost style? That works fine. The idea is to keep the chest open. That's what I'm trying to get to here. So when you open up the arms like this, pull on the strap a little bit. It kind of encourages you to use your upper back strength to keep the chest open, keep the collarbones wide. Inhale here, nice long elevator shaft. Keep it long, don't bend it as you lean forward. So come back up and lean forward. So we're not trying to get to our toes. We're not trying to do Paschimottanasana. We're trying to, if we can, learn to angle at the hips and keep the elevator shaft long and straight. So my ears stay in between my upper arms, if my arms are lifted like mine. And the shoulder and upper back muscles are active in this version of the pose. Okay, one more breath, moving dynamically. And then let's release the strap. Okay, I'm going to use a blanket under my knees, but I'd like to, before I get there, show you something you could do if you don't like to weight bear on your knees. Your good friend, the chair, can come in handy again. And you can use that blanket that you were using under your knees to put behind your spine. So as you come onto the chair, you can't sit all the way back because you've got this big roll of blanket and it's in the same length as your spine, the same direction as your spine. And then we're going to be working on camel pose, but you could be working on seated camel pose by pressing your feet into the floor and opening your chest. We're going to also use some props around our legs. You can do that seated in a chair too. Okay, so for those of us who are more comfortable on our knees, make sure you have lots of padding because we might stay here for a little bit. I'm going to also use the block between my thighs again, like I did in bridge pose. So if you're seated in the chair, you could also have a block between your thighs. One of my teachers calls this dynamic version of camel pose deep pockets. For my friends that are sitting in a chair, you won't have access to your pockets, so you just hold on to the chair rungs about here. So when you're ready, we're going to inhale, lengthening nice and tall, keep that spinal shaft long, and then as you exhale, mine your pockets. And then inhale, come back up, hands come up to the level of the sacrum. Exhale, go right into the deepest part of your back pockets. The spine is staying the same shape. We're bringing the legs close together to hug the block or the Kleenex box, whatever you're using. And when you feel you've come into this enough that your joints are lubricated, and maybe you need to take a rest in child's pose or abandon this altogether, we can stay in the camel pose. So wherever your hands are in your pockets, keep them right there. Keep elongating the elevator shaft and take a couple deep breaths. This is a pretty tough pose. It's hard to find a place where you can really rest in this pose. But see if you can find some aspect of ease. Maybe one more breath. And then we'll release. Either take the blanket out from behind you in the chair or just come to sit in thunderbolt pose. If sitting in thunderbolt pose isn't good for your knees, come back to the pose with your legs straight out front. Staff pose, we tried that before. Okay. I hope you're finding that there's a lot of interesting things to discover when you take time in postures and get to know yourself a little bit more. The next pose I was going to suggest is cow face pose, but this whole changing the legs to the whale tail sort of thing is pretty tough for many of us. So you can take a cross-legged position. Today I'm going to explore cow face pose with my chair, and you might want to try this with me. So if you know cow face pose, Gomukhasana, and you like to do it the traditional way, and you can hold it with no strain whatsoever, then that's fine. But I've always found it a very challenging pose. So let's think about using a chair. I'm going to take my right leg and cross it over my left leg. And anchor both of the sitting bones firmly into the ground. The tie can be over the left shoulder. And we'll roll the right arm under, tuck it up the back, take a hold of the tie. Inhale, lift the other arm straight up, bend at the elbow and take a hold of the tie. Now, if you can hold 4 fingers to 4 fingers back there and you're not feeling pulling on any of your joints, well, then you're blessed with wonderfully long levers and you can get away with that no problem. I do not have that in my body. So if I try to grasp my fingers, what's going to happen is I'm going to pull on my connective tissue and I'm going to end up causing some rebound stiffness. So what I want to do is use the tie. There's no slack in the tie, but I'm using the tie to pretend I have nice long arms. Go back down into your sitting bones, whatever version of this pose you've taken, and make sure both sitting bones are well pressed into the floor or the chair. Now take your top elbow and move it back a little bit towards the wall behind you. So the chest is spacious and open. And it's okay to lean to a tiny little bit of half moon sort of action so that the top elbow is really reaching away from the bottom sitting bone. Now this posture is actually one of the seats that is talked about in some of the classical yoga literature. And most of the postures that actually show up in the old texts, we like to say yoga is 5,000 years old, but it's really not the way we practice it. But this does show up in a couple texts that are a few hundred years old because it's a meditation seat. And that's what all this asana was all about, is a seat for meditation. So this is actually a posture in which people would meditate for long periods of time. That's why I was thinking it'd be interesting to try the chair variation today, so that we have the space, we have the capacity to really feel and understand all layers of this. Take a few more breaths in this side. And notice if there's areas in your body that are holding habitual tension. The neck, make sure your head is nice and free here. You're using enough props so that there's no pushing on the neck. Your jaw's relaxing, tongue's relaxing, eyes are relaxing. And then when you feel like you've explored enough, slowly releasing into a neutral position. So you can do a thunderbolt pose if you're on the ground, or if you're like me, you can take a seated mountain pose. As you come back to the symmetrical container for your experience, notice. And what is brilliant about yoga is this domination of right over left, or left over right for a while. And then we come into this balanced position, and all of a sudden you can feel, can't you? That sense of settling in, that sense of okayness. And that's one of the brilliant things I think about yoga. Okay, let's take left leg over right, switch the tie around, and come into the posture on the other side. So the opposite elbow will be pointing up to the ceiling and pulling back slightly, both sitting bones well anchored and balanced into the ground. So taking some moments to just kind of settle into, the little nooks and crannies. I often puzzled why they would call this cow face pose. And my teachers used to say sometimes about chewing the cud. But it goes a little bit deeper than that. And things usually do. When you take the time to ask the questions, you usually learn a little bit more, don't you? So yeah, when you think about cow face pose and you reflect on the culture of India, not that I've ever been there, but the culture of India reveres the cow being a symbol of the earth. And in her abundance, she not only feeds her calf, but she feeds all the people around her as well with her abundant gifts. And dairy, of course, is very a sweet flavor. And they make a lot of wonderful treats out of milk sugar in India. So the cow is seen as symbolic of the gifts and the care that the Mother Earth has for us. So when you take this pose, your face should be as serene as the cow as she meanders through the town. And she is not worshipped, that would be the wrong word, but she is revered as a symbol of all that is rich and good in this life. So we reflect that from our face, we beam that out. Can you find that level of contentment, that level of stability and calm in your pose? That benevolence. And when you're ready, we can release the pose. And we'll come back down onto the back for one closing stretch. I'm sorry I'm going over today, but we were a few minutes late in getting started. And I'm so enjoying this work with you today. I got a little carried away. So coming back down onto our backs, if you want to have props to support you, have them close by. We'll be moving from this last pose into our Shavasana. So take a moment to let the whole spinal shaft be once again parallel to the ground, so you can really feel that beautiful connection that our bodies, our relationship we have with gravity and the earth. We'll move dynamically a little bit and then consider holding. Inhale, you can take your arms back behind your head if you want. Exhale, hug one knee in towards the chest. Inhale, arms can come back. Exhale, other knee gently moves towards the chest. Let's alternate 2 more times. Slowing down the pace of movement and slowing down the pace of breath as we kind of start to get ready to release a lot of movement this afternoon for a while. And then let's inhale, exhale, hug the other knee in towards your chest. So we're back to the first knee. Stretch the second leg flat out onto the floor. You're welcome to stay right here, but I was thinking about maybe going into a supine twist here. Release one arm out to the side. So I've got my right knee in towards my chest. I've let my right arm relax back to the ground. And I'm going to start to roll away from my right side over towards my left side. I don't want to pull my knee towards the ground. I'd like to support it. So I'm finding my block here. You might have a stack of blankets or pillows there, and it will support the knee without pulling it to the ground. So I don't really need my second arm at all. It can just have a little nap. And I'm finding for me, the block underneath my calf works really well here. And I feel like I can just really relax. So my whole spine is actually pretty much still touching the ground, just my tailbone's pulled away a little bit. So I still feel that sense of grounding. I'm not pulled to the end of my rope. I'm just, gently massaging and flossing a few areas in my body, particularly in the abdominal cavity. But I'm not feeling like I'm out at the end of my gangplank. I'm able to rest. I'm able to just breathe somewhat naturally here. And then when you're ready to come out of the posture, use your hands now to help draw that leg back into your chest. You can pause here for a second. One leg straight, one knee bent. Here we are in an asymmetrical posture again. And then we can relax and let both legs stretch out briefly. So you can drink in the benefits of being asymmetrical for a bit. And then take that second knee, bring it in towards the chest and start to move towards your twist. I want my block with me. You might want to bring your pillows. And you might need more or less propping on this side. But this is working really, really beautiful for me right now. It all feels kind of more fluid to hold the postures in this way, a little bit more organic. We really want to be alert for any senses of strain or forcing. And noticing the effect of this gentle twist on all the different layers we've been exploring through our class tonight. Not just the physical sense of stretches, but also the effect on our breath, on our mood, and the kinds of thoughts that are occurring to us right now. When it's time to leave the posture, just use your hands to help bring the knee up. You can hold it into the chest for a few breaths if you like, and then we'll move to Shavasana. And there might be something else you decide that you'd like to fit in there. That's fine. And then we'll adjust into a fully lengthened position. as soon as you can. So once again, if you think about the elevator shaft, we can move all the way from the soles of the feet to the crown of the head. And we're basically in one kind of straight line of energy. And it might help you really deeply absorb the benefits of the practice this afternoon to use that imagery over the next couple breaths. Inhale, draw in from the soles of the feet, move up the legs, the body to the crown of the head. And then exhale, move down the body with the breath to the soles of the feet. The whole length of the body is being activated by your attention and breath. And notice as we come to stillness here in Shavasana, if you're able to really receive the support of the earth, where there are areas in the body that are just holding on to the tension from the day. And know that that's okay. Those are places that don't feel safe yet. And we're not going to make them feel more safe by yelling at them. Gently invite the breath to circulate through those places of holding. Make sure your body knows that we found sanctuary here on the mat. And that the earth will receive our weight. If you could take a little bit more time, you've worked really hard in class today, so it would be lovely to have a little bit more time to absorb the benefits. But I am very conscious of, I've gone quite a bit over the time that you signed up for. You could gently be making your way over onto your side and up from the floor. And if you like, we could seal our class together by sharing the sacred sound of Om. I'm inhaling now. Namaste. So if you have time to stay for a quick chat, that would be awesome.